That tent should have killed him. Everyone said so. The guy from the next camp over said it. The outreach worker who stopped by in November said it. Even the local news crew who filmed it from the sidewalk said it, laughed actually on camera before they drove back to their heated van. But Marcus Webb did not die. He did not even get frostbite. He sat inside that tent for 40 consecutive days of some of the worst winter weather Minneapolis had seen in a generation. When the temperature outside dropped to minus 23 degrees Fahrenheit, the inside of his shelter held at 51 degrees Fahrenheit. 51 degrees in a structure people had called garbage, literally called garbage because parts of it were. Here is the part that should stop you cold. Marcus did not invent anything. He did not have engineering training. What he had were 2 tours in Afghanistan, a military field manual he had memorized a decade earlier, and a hard-won understanding of something most people have been told their entire lives to ignore, that the physics of warmth has almost nothing to do with the price tag on the thing keeping you warm. You have been spending money on the wrong thing for years, and the industry that sold it to you knew that when they built it. Picture the camp in early October, a row of tents along the concrete underpass near the river. Most of them were the same boxy dome shapes you would recognize from any sporting goods store, single-wall nylon, rated to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, cheerful colors faded from months in the sun. They look like camping equipment because they are camping equipment, designed for a weekend in mild weather and being used as permanent homes in a Minnesota winter. Marcus had one of those tents when he first arrived. He used it for 3 weeks, and then he got hypothermia on a Tuesday night when the temperature dropped faster than the forecast said it would. After that, he made a decision. He started collecting what the city discarded, cardboard first, then the foam inserts from electronics boxes, a painter's tarp from a dumpster outside a hardware store, 4 Mylar emergency blankets scavenged from a marathon finish line, old newspapers, a roll of duct tape. Over the course of 6 weeks, he built something that no one in that camp had ever seen before, and they let him know exactly what they thought of it. It's a pile of trash, man. You are going to freeze under all that junk. That thing is going to collapse in the first real snow. It did not collapse. It did not let him freeze. And the reason why should make you fundamentally reconsider what you think you know about warmth, survival, and who in this society actually understands how to stay alive. Have you ever tried to stay warm with something that promised to work? A product, a piece of gear, a supplement, and found out the hard way that it failed you exactly when you needed it most? Drop a comment below. Tell me what happened. Tell me what you were using and when it quit on you. Because what you are about to discover will change how you see the entire conversation around insulation and what it actually means to engineer a space against the cold. Here is what the modern tent industry sells you. A single wall nylon shell, sometimes 2 walls if you have paid enough, rated to a temperature number printed on the box that refers to the lowest temperature at which a standard sleeper can technically survive without dying. Survive, not sleep, not function, survive. The shell is light, packable, colorful, and it fails for the same reason every year. It addresses only one of the 5 mechanisms by which your body loses heat in a cold environment. 1 out of 5. The industry built its entire product line around solving one problem and called it a solution, and the market rewarded them for it because you can photograph a tent. You can show it in an advertisement. You can put a rating number on the box. You cannot photograph physics, so the industry decided to pretend the other 4 mechanisms do not exist. Those mechanisms are conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, and evaporation. Conduction is heat bleeding directly from a warm object into a cold surface. It is touching your body into the ground, into the floor of the tent, into anything your skin contacts. Convection is heat being stripped away by moving air, wind, drafts, any circulation, pulling the warmth off your surface and replacing it with cold. Radiation is heat leaving your body as infrared energy, invisible, constant, radiating outward through the air and through any material that does not reflect it back. Respiration is the heat you exhale with every breath, warm air out, cold air in, a cycle that quietly drains your core temperature over hours. And evaporation is the moisture your body produces, sweat, even the faint sweat of doing nothing, which wicks heat away from your skin as it evaporates, sometimes 50 times faster than dry air would. The modern dome tent addresses convection. That is it. It blocks the wind. And it earns itself a temperature rating and a marketing campaign for that single achievement. Meanwhile, your body is conducting heat into the thin nylon floor and into the frozen ground beneath it. Your body is radiating heat through the single-layer walls like a lamp radiating light through a window. Your breath is filling the small internal volume with moisture that then condenses on the walls and cools the interior. And the moisture your skin produces has nowhere to go in a sealed synthetic environment, so it stays, chilling you from the inside. You spend $200, $300, or $500 on a tent, and the physics that kills you works around it like water finding the crack in a dam. Marcus understood this because the army had taught him, not in a classroom, in a field survival manual that described, with no marketing language and no cheerful branding, exactly how heat escapes a human body and exactly how you interrupt each pathway. The manual was not interested in selling him anything. It was interested in keeping him alive, because a dead soldier is expensive. So it told him the truth, and he carried that truth out of the army and into that underpass, and he built it into a structure out of material that cost him nothing. And the result was something that performed at a level that no commercially available tent in that price bracket could have matched. Here is where it gets remarkable. Let us walk through what he actually built, layer by layer, because each layer was answering a specific mechanism of heat loss. And together, they work the way a system works, not the way a product works. A product solves one thing. A system solves everything. The ground first. He laid down 2 wooden pallets scavenged from behind a grocery store and elevated the floor of his tent 8 inches above the concrete. Beneath the pallets, he pushed cardboard. 3 layers, the corrugated kind with the air channels running through it. Think about what corrugated cardboard actually is for a moment. It is not simply paper. It is paper engineered to trap air in channels. Those air channels conduct heat approximately 1/7 as well as the concrete beneath them. 1/7. That 8-inch elevated floor with its cardboard base dropped the conductive heat loss through the ground to near zero. Every sleeping bag you have ever owned assumes you have a sleeping pad, and sleeping pads assume you have a ground that is not frozen solid and actively pulling heat through whatever you lay on top of it. The pallet system breaks that chain entirely. Nothing in a modern commercial tent addresses this, because the floor of the tent costs of material and weight, and the industry decided those costs should be yours to bear. With a separately purchased sleeping pad, you will inevitably compress into uselessness within 2 months of regular use. On top of the pallets went the first layer of foam, the kind molded to hold a television inside a box. Firm and cream-colored and 2 inches thick, he laid it flat and cut it into panels with a knife. Dead air. That is the mechanism at work here. Foam insulation does not warm you. It cannot produce heat. What it does is divide the air around you into cells too small for convection currents to form. Moving air transfers heat. Still air almost does not. When you trap air in a matrix of foam cells, you have essentially frozen the air in place without making it cold, and that frozen in place air becomes an insulating layer, so effective that it is the same principle behind every high-performance insulated wall in every building on Earth. Marcus was doing with found foam what architects charge tens of thousands of dollars to engineer into modern homes. If you are finding this genuinely useful, hit that like button now, because we are just getting to the part that most people have never heard explained in plain language. The outer walls were next, and this is where Marcus diverged most dramatically from anything you'd find in a sporting goods store. He didn't use one shell, he used three, with air gaps between them. The innermost layer was the original dome tent, the one he'd nearly died in, but now it served only as the inner membrane. Stretched around that, 2 inches away, held open with short dowel rods cut from a broken mop handle, he fitted the painter's tarp. Another 2-inch gap, another layer of material, a second tarp, this one heavier. 3 walls, 2 dead air channels. This is called double cavity construction, and it is the same principle that makes a thermos bottle work. A thermos does not use fancy materials to keep your coffee hot. It uses 2 walls with a vacuum between them. Marcus could not create a vacuum, but he created still air, which is the next best thing, and the physics reward you almost as generously. Now the mylar. He lined the interior surface of that innermost tent shell with the emergency blankets, silver side facing inward, and this is the step that the entire structure depended on most. Your body radiates heat as infrared energy, constantly in all directions, like a small and very inefficient heater. Without a reflective surface nearby, that infrared energy moves through the air, hits the tent walls, and conducts outward into the cold. Gone. Mylar, the material in those crinkly silver emergency blankets, reflects 97% of radiant infrared energy, 97. When Marcus lined the interior of his shelter with it, his own body heat became a mirror facing him, bouncing back, recycled, kept inside the system. The same material NASA uses to protect satellites from the temperature extremes of space, where there is no atmosphere, no convection, just raw radiation, was doing its job inside a structure built from grocery store pallets and dumpster foam. That material does not care how much you paid for your tent. The physics operates independently of your budget. Here is the part that should make you angry. This technology has been understood for decades. The military has used it. Survivalists have written about it. Emergency management professionals recommend it. But the commercial outdoor industry has almost completely ignored it in their mainstream product lines, because a tent made of multiple layers and reflective interiors is harder to stuff into a stuff sack. It is heavier. It photographs badly. It does not look like progress. It looks like what it is, a system engineered around physics rather than around a marketing brief. Profit chose convenience. And then, when you froze, the industry told you that you needed a better sleeping bag, a newer model, an upgraded shell, more features, more expense. You were not kept warm, you were kept consuming. The final piece was ventilation, a controlled vent at the apex of the outermost layer, a small circular opening covered with a loose flap. This addressed the moisture problem, the respiration and evaporation pathways that seal most tents into a slow trap. Warm, humid air from his breathing could rise and escape through that vent without creating a draft. The interior stayed dry. A dry interior is a warm interior. Moisture is heat's accomplice in betrayal. It strips warmth from surfaces at a rate that dry air cannot come close to matching. The vent was the difference between waking up damp and cold inside a sealed environment and waking up dry inside a system that had conserved its heat through the night. When the 40-day storm cycle ended, outreach workers came back to check on the camp. Several people had been transported to hospitals with cold-related injury. 2 tents had collapsed under snow accumulation. Marcus's structure, the pile of garbage, the thing they had laughed at, stood exactly as he had built it, and he walked out of it in the same condition he had walked into the first storm. Intact, functional, warm. So what can you actually do with this? Because this is not just a story about one man's survival, It is an instruction set disguised as a narrative, and you deserve the practical version. The easiest thing you can do right now is buy 4 Mylar emergency blankets. They cost less than $2 each. Line the interior of whatever sleeping space concerns you most: a tent, a car, or a room with poor insulation. With the silver side facing you, you will immediately intercept the radiant heat loss that every other solution ignores. If you want to go further, the next step is ground isolation. Whatever you sleep on, sleep elevated or double insulated from the floor. A yoga mat under a foam pad is more effective than a $100 sleeping pad that has been compressed into half its rated thickness. The ground steals heat faster than the air does at nearly any temperature below freezing, and almost no one tells you that clearly enough for it to change behavior. If you are ready to build something more intentional, a survival shelter, a winter camping setup, or a backup solution for a power outage, build in layers. Not one shell, 3 shells, air gaps between them. The gaps do as much work as the materials. The system is what keeps you alive, not the brand, not the rating on the box. And if you want to verify a piece of gear before you trust it in the cold, press your palm against the inside wall of your tent after an hour with your body heat filling the space. If the wall feels cold, you are losing heat through it. If it feels close to skin temperature, the system is working. That test takes 30 seconds, and it will tell you more about the real performance of any shelter than any number the manufacturer printed on the box. Marcus Webb understood something that the industry spent decades and billions of dollars obscuring. Warmth is not a product. It is not a feature. It is a set of physical principles operating on your body at all times, in all directions simultaneously. The only shelter that actually works is the one that answers all of them, not just the one that photographs well for a catalog. He was not a primitive man using scraps because he had no better option. He was an engineer working with the materials at hand, applying principles that are older than every company that ever made a tent and will outlast every one of them too. The knowledge wasn't lost. It was just too cheap to sell. We're building this channel around exactly this kind of investigation. The methods, materials, and systems that were abandoned, not because they stopped working, but because they stopped generating profit. Subscribe if you want more. Tell us in the comments, what's the next topic you want us to dig into? What system in your life has failed you that you are finally ready to understand?